It always begins the same way. You're asleep, or at least you think you are. The room feels familiar, yet distant, like you're floating inside a copy of your own reality. Your eyes flutter open, but your body doesn't move, not even a finger. The air thickens, something presses on your chest, your breath shortens, your heartbeat spikes, and then, the presence. It's not imagined. You feel it, behind you, beside you, inside you. Something ancient, something observing, something that doesn't speak with words, but with weight. You try to scream, but the sound never comes. You want to wake up, but you already are. They told you it's just sleep paralysis, a glitch in REM, a biological error. But what if it isn't? What if this moment, this terrifying, paralyzing, suffocating encounter, isn't a malfunction at all, but a doorway? In this video, we're going to explore what sleep paralysis really is, not from the lens of modern science, but from the perspective of ancient mystics, esoteric traditions, and spiritual explorers. And here's what might shock you. The figures people see during sleep paralysis, the shadows, the beings, the watchers, they've been described in almost every culture, on every continent, for thousands of years. Which raises a question no skeptic wants to ask. If it's just a hallucination, why does it follow such specific, global patterns? And more disturbingly, why do some people say that after a certain point, the beings start communicating back? Stay with me, because later in this video, you'll hear the account of someone who didn't just survive sleep paralysis. They learned to use it, and what they found on the other side was not a nightmare, but a truth too powerful to forget. If this feels familiar, if something deep inside you stirred reading this, don't click away. There's something waiting inside this message, and the fact that you're here right now might not be accidental. What if I told you that what you experienced, the pressure, the stillness, the presence in the room, was once considered sacred? In ancient Egypt, they called it the gateway of Sekhem, a moment where the Ka, or soul, would loosen its grip from the body, not in death, but in preparation. The Tibetans knew it too. They described it in the Bardo Thodol, what the West calls the Tibetan Book of the Dead, as the intermediate realm, the liminal veil between waking and dreaming, where beings of both light and shadow reside. And long before neuroscience tried to reduce it to misfiring neurons, the shamans of the Amazon believed that when your body freezes in sleep, your spirit begins to walk. It's not paralysis, it's separation. Because the truth hidden in plain sight is this: when you sleep, you don't stop existing. You just shift frequency. And sometimes, just sometimes, you wake up in between. This in-between state is fragile. It's like standing on a wire stretched between worlds. Too much fear, and you fall back into your body. Too much curiosity, and you slip further out. But if you learn to hold your awareness right on that wire, you begin to see what lives on the other side of the veil. And this is where things get strange, because the beings you meet in sleep paralysis, they're not always figments of your mind. They're aware. Sometimes they watch, sometimes they test, and sometimes they teach. Not with language, but with images, with presence, with a kind of pressure that collapses your old sense of self so that something new can emerge. But they don't reveal themselves to everyone, only to those who stay conscious when the body forgets how to move. Not everyone's experience of sleep paralysis is the same. For some, it's pure terror, a dark figure in the doorway, breathless weight on the chest, the sensation of being watched by something with no face, but unmistakable intent. Others describe floating, hearing voices, being pulled upward, through the ceiling, into the stars. And then there are those, the rare ones, who describe a stillness so complete, so sacred, that they never wanted to come back. What separates these experiences? Why does one person meet the shadow and another the light? The answer isn't random, it's resonance. Sleep paralysis doesn't just trap your body, it amplifies your vibration. It reflects your energetic state back to you, magnified, intensified, unfiltered. That's why fear makes it darker, why surrender softens it, why curiosity cracks it open like a door. You're not being punished, you're being shown, and what appears in that space is shaped, not entirely but deeply, by the frequency you carry in. So if you enter that state filled with shame, regret, or chaos, the being you meet might mirror that. But if you enter with presence, if you stay conscious as your body dissolves, you may find something else waiting, not a shadow, a guide. And here's the twist most people never hear. Sometimes, they start speaking back. You won't hear words, you'll feel them, like thoughts that aren't yours, but arrive fully formed. Some messages are warnings, others are invitations, and a few will change the course of your waking life forever. There's a strange thing that happens during sleep paralysis. Your eyes feel open. You see the room, the ceiling fan, the window, the faint blue glow of your alarm clock. But something is off. The angles are sharper. The light feels thicker, like syrup in the air. Shadows move where no movement should exist. And then, you realize you're not seeing with your eyes. You're perceiving with something deeper, an inner sight that doesn't rely on biology, but on proximity to something far more subtle. The mystics called it the astral gaze, the soul's vision, not bound by the optic nerve, but by alignment. Because in that liminal state, that nowhere between worlds, you are not fully in your body. You are beside it, hovering just outside the edge of flesh, not enough to float away, but enough to see beyond what waking life allows. This is why some people report seeing beings standing beside their bed, even when no one else does. It's not delusion, it's access. You're not hallucinating, you're tuning in. Because the beings that exist in the liminal realm don't hide from your eyes. They simply exist at a frequency your waking state cannot register. But in sleep paralysis, when the gate between inner and outer cracks open, you see what was always there. Not because you're special, but because in that moment, you're silent enough to witness it. And sometimes, what you see sees you back. The gaze is mutual, the presence reciprocal. And if you can hold your awareness, if you can resist the urge to fight, to scream, to wake, you may discover that the being isn't here to harm you. It's here to deliver something, a symbol, a word, a memory you've never had, but somehow recognize. Because vision in the liminal state is not about seeing the world, it's about remembering why you came here. And sometimes, that memory returns in the shape of a shadow. In almost every ancient tradition, there was one truth whispered through temples, etched into stone, passed from initiate to initiate in silence. The body sleeps, but the soul does not. And what modern science calls sleep paralysis, the ancients called something else entirely. The Druids referred to it as the still veil, a space between breath and dream, where one could hear the thoughts of the earth. The Persian mystics described it as Ra-Shani, the light that visits just before the spirit leaves the body. And the Toltecs believed it was a threshold, a deliberate training ground, a trial where only the aware could pass through the gates without being consumed by their own fear. Because that's what most people miss. The paralysis is permission. It's the body stepping aside so that the spirit can rise. You don't fall into sleep paralysis. You're invited into it. But the invitation is not without its guardians. Every culture that revered the sleep state warned of the watchers. Not evil, not good, but ancient forces that measure your coherence. Not what you believe, but what you radiate. If you carry unresolved fear, they mirror it. If you carry stillness, they open. Because these thresholds are not passive. They test your field, your intention, your clarity. And if you pass, if you can hold your awareness in that frozen state long enough without collapsing into panic, the gate opens. And what lies beyond it isn't a dream. It isn't even sleep. It's space, pure awareness. And sometimes, something else. A memory of being free from form, of not having a name, of drifting in a sea of quiet so infinite that returning to your body feels like putting on something much too small. That's why some come back in tears, not from fear, but from remembering. Remembering that the soul is not bound. It is tethered only lightly, until you agree to return. Some people never escape sleep paralysis. It haunts them, They dread falling asleep. They avoid the stillness of night. They fear the moment their body betrays them again. But others, the few, the silent, don't just endure it. They learn from it. And slowly, without guidance, without dogma, without even knowing what they're doing, they begin to notice something strange. The fear fades. The pressure on the chest becomes bearable. The shadows lose their teeth. The paralysis softens. And something else emerges in its place. A choice. You see, the body might be frozen, but your consciousness is not. And once you stop fighting the freeze, once you surrender to the stillness instead of resisting it, you realize something no one told you. You can leave, not wake up, not move, but leave, float, detach, step out, not physically, but energetically. This is the secret hidden in sleep paralysis. It is not the barrier. It is the bridge. The tightness you feel, that's the shell breaking. The buzz in your ears, that's the frequency shift. The feeling of being lifted, that's not imagination. That's you, the real you, peeling away from the body like mist from skin. And what lies on the other side? That depends. Some find themselves drifting above their beds, watching their sleeping body like a stranger. Some rise through ceilings, through clouds, into stars. And some are pulled sideways, into tunnels of color, into memories that aren't theirs, into landscapes that don't exist on Earth, but feel known. They are not dreams. They are layers of consciousness, dimensions your waking self has forgotten, but your soul remembers like home. And here's what most will never understand. You don't have to wait for sleep paralysis to happen to you. You can train for it, welcome it, use it, like a ritual, like a doorway, like a tool passed down through silence and blood. And when you do, you stop fearing the night. You start listening to it. Because night, when honored, doesn't just restore your body, it returns your memory. They don't have names, not really. Some call them the Hat Man, others shadow people. In ancient lore, they were the jinn, the incubi, the silent watchers. Cultures oceans apart describe them the same way. Faceless, tall, observing, never speaking, but always present. They don't knock, they don't enter. They appear, as if they were already there, waiting for you to become still enough to notice. The question isn't just, who are they? The real question is, why do so many of us see them, and see the same ones? This isn't a modern phenomenon. There are stone carvings in Mesopotamia depicting paralyzed figures with looming shadows overhead. There are medieval woodcuts of sleepers surrounded by thin-limbed silhouettes, always at night, always near the bed. And today, tens of thousands of online accounts echo the same pattern: the paralysis, the heaviness, the presence. You could say they're hallucinations. But why are hallucinations across time, culture, belief, and geography so synchronized? Why do people in Japan and Mexico and Canada describe the same figures, the same room distortions, the same whispering tones just beyond hearing? And why? Do some say the beings remember them? There are theories. Some believe they are interdimensional entities, feeding on low-vibration fear, not demons, not aliens, but something in between. Others say they're projections, embodied traumas from the unconscious, surfacing when the ego sleeps and can no longer hide. And a few, a rare few, say they are guardians, sentinels of the threshold, testing who is ready and who still sleeps. Maybe they're all of it. Maybe they shift based on what you bring to the encounter. But one thing is certain: when they appear, you are not alone. And if you hold your awareness, if you ask inwardly, not fearfully, sometimes they answer. Not with words, but with shifts. A thought suddenly not yours, a memory that unlocks, a silence so complete it breaks something in you. And when it does, you're no longer the same. Not because they touched you, but because you saw them and realized something terrifying and beautiful. They've seen you long before you ever saw them. There's a moment, after the fear fades, after the questions quiet, when you realize sleep paralysis was never about being stuck. It was an invitation to listen, to feel, to remember. Most people fight the experience, and that's natural. It's terrifying to be awake inside a body that refuses to respond. But when you stop fighting, when you surrender without collapsing, you start to learn. You learn that consciousness is not binary. It's not on or off, awake or asleep. It's layered, and sleep paralysis is a crack in those layers, a moment when your awareness sits between frequencies, like a needle caught between stations. Most people flip the dial. The few tune in. Because if you stay in that space long enough, if you learn to breathe slowly inside the stillness, you begin to shape the experience. You set intentions before bed. You cleanse your emotional field. You open the night with reverence, not resistance. And the paralysis doesn't go away. It deepens. But now, it's not a prison. It's a practice. You use it to enter dreams with lucidity, to visit places from childhood you forgot you remembered, to meet versions of yourself that still live in potential, to receive images, guidance, downloads, not from entities out there, but from the part of you that has always been connected to everything. And slowly, your nights change. The shadows don't vanish, but they soften. They become symbols. They test less, teach more. And you begin to see that sleep, when honored, is not unconsciousness. It's ceremony. And sleep paralysis? It's the first bell, a call to silence, a moment to return to your core, to pass through fear and into frequency. So, how do you go there? Not by accident, not by fear, but with choice. How do you enter sleep paralysis not as a victim, but as a visitor? It begins before you ever close your eyes. First, still the noise. The more chaotic your day, the more scrambled your field. Sleep paralysis is a fine frequency. It only opens when the surface static has quieted. Dim your lights. Turn off the scroll. Don't eat before bed. Don't flood your brain with information. Let the night feel like night. Second, set the frame. As you lie down, say this, not aloud, but inward. I allow my body to rest, but I choose to stay aware. It doesn't have to be poetic. It has to be honest. Third, lie flat, on your back, arms by your sides. Close your eyes, but do not chase sleep. Instead, watch for it. Notice the flickers behind your eyelids, the gentle buzz in your ears, the feeling that your limbs are made of stone. That's the threshold. Now comes the hard part. Don't move, not when your chest feels tight, not when the sound swells, not even when the presence enters the room. Because if you stay still, if you let the freeze rise like a tide without fleeing, something shifts. Your body stays. Your awareness loosens. You may feel like you're floating, like your fingers are inches off the bed, like the room is stretching. That's not imagination. That's entry. And it might not happen the first night or the second, but one night you'll feel the familiar pressure return. And instead of fear, you'll smile. Because now you know, you're not being attacked. You're being invited. And from there, the journey is yours. Where you go depends on what you carry. What you seek determines what answers. And what you're willing to see shapes what is shown. What if everything you feared in the dark was never there to harm you? What if the pressure on your chest, the frozen limbs, the presence in the corner were never enemies? What if they were thresholds, not designed to trap you, but to return you to stillness, to presence, to the part of you that remembers what it means to drift without fear, to be aware inside the void and know it is not empty? Because here's the truth few will tell you. Sleep paralysis is not a glitch. It's a mirror. It shows you what you avoid, what you bury, and if you're willing to stay, what you've forgotten. It is not the end of dreaming. It's the beginning of waking up from the deeper sleep we all live inside. So the next time it comes, don't run. Don't beg to wake up. Don't call it a nightmare. Pause, breathe, listen, and ask, not with your voice, but with your field. What are you here to show me? And then, wait. Because sometimes the most powerful truths don't arrive in words. They arrive in pressure, in stillness, in the silence between fear and surrender. And if this video stirred something in you, if you've ever seen the shadows, heard the ringing, felt the pull, then share it. Leave a comment. Say what you saw. Say what you're still trying to understand, because someone else might be waking up tonight, and your story might be their mirror. And if you're ready to walk further, to listen deeper, subscribe. We're not just decoding dreams, we're remembering how to move between worlds. And this is only the beginning.